Hello everyone, welcome back to MalStorm Gaming. My name is Malachi Gardner. Today I'm going to be reviewing Clash of Decks, a game by Léandre Proust. So Clash of Decks is a dueling card game for 1 to 2 players, and in it you will be creating a deck of 8 cards, and you will be playing cards from your hand to summon creatures and play powerful incantations, and you will have your creatures march across one of the 2 bridges in the game to destroy your opponent's fort. But it won't be easy, because your opponent will also be playing creatures onto their side of the bridges and having them march across, and so your creatures will have to fight on the bridges in order to get over to destroy the opponent's fort. I've already done a full playthrough of the solo game for Clash of Decks, so if you'd like to check that out, you can go ahead and click on the tab which should be appearing on the screen right now, and that'll take you right to the original playthrough I did, where you can see me play against the solo enemy. In this review, I'm not going to be going too in-depth into how to play the game, since I've already covered that in my other video, but that is available for you to check out if you don't know much about Clash of Decks. Clash of Decks has a very interesting, where it calls itself a free-to-play card game, and it actually is, sort of. So Clash of Decks, originally known as Clash of Deck, was originally a free-to-play, print-and-play that was published in French, I believe it was just in French, and you could print off these sheets of paper, cut out all the cards, and play. Then Kickstarter was launched to actually make Clash of Decks a physical reality, not just print and plays, but actually something you could purchase and it'll come to you already printed out, already cut out in a box. The original campaign had lots of content in it, many different game modes, hundreds of cards, and it didn't fund. So then, after the first unsuccessful Kickstarter, a second Kickstarter was launched, and in that Kickstarter, the only thing I sold is this tiny little starter kit, and this cost no money. To get, you actually just had to pay for shipping, which is like €2, so you just had to pay for the shipping, and then you get your free game. So it's a really interesting business model, where it's actually free to play. And in the second Kickstarter for Season 2, which is now currently on Kickstarter, and I'll have a link inside the description for this video, they're continuing with having the starter kit be free. So there's new expansions on the new Kickstarter, about 200 new cards that you can purchase, but the original starter kit is free on the Kickstarter. So you can actually get a free starter kit if you pledge on the Kickstarter. So it's just an interesting thing, just with the really interesting, unique take on the distribution of games. Having a free-to-play card game that's not just a print-and-play. That's a really interesting thing. Now, more of my thoughts on, that's a really neat thing. I hadn't really seen that before, and I'm glad that it's working. So now some of my thoughts on the actual game. Let's go ahead and start with a positive, and I really like how quickly it is to get this game on the table. The setup's really short, and it's a very quick, snappy game that you can play. I haven't done too much with the 2-player game mode, but I've mostly been spending my time on the solo mode, and it's very fast, very quick, and it's something you can just pull out, set it up really quickly, draft your deck, shuffle up the enemy's deck, and then play a match. And it's definitely something that you can just fit into a small amount of time, which is really nice. So that's my first positive of the game. It has a really nice setup and teardown time, and the gameplay itself is very small, very contained, and quick. My second positive for this game is that the hand management of this game is so interesting and so unique. So in this game you have a handful of 9 cards. 8 of them are going to be either creatures or incantations, but you also have a Fort/Bastion card. And so this last card here, the Fort Bastion card, is going to be used to track your health. So, as the last step in setup is to actually shuffle up the 8 cards you have and fan them out, and then put the Fort Bastion card as the leftmost card. So you have your 9 cards, with your fort being on the far left, and after the initial shuffle, you can't rearrange your cards at all. And there's multiple reasons for this. The first reason is that you can only actually play the 4 cards on the leftmost side, skipping over the Fort Bastion card. So if you think of your cards as a straight line, numbered 1 through 9, number 1 through 8, you can play cards 1 through 4, but always skipping over the Fort Bastion card. And so there's always going to be 4 cards you have in your hand that you're able to play, and then you're going to have potentially 4 other cards that you won't be able to play in your hand at any given time. Also, the Fort Bastion card tracks your health, because as you take damage, instead of adjusting your health total on some die or tracker of some sort, you're actually going to be moving your Fort Bastion card to the right as many spaces as you took damage. So if you took 2 points of damage from an enemy creature attacking you, you will then move your Fort card 2 spaces to the right. And so now it's not going to be the leftmost space, it's going to be a couple cards in. And as you take more damage, it's going to be moving further and further to the right. If the card ever gets to the rightmost position in your hand and the Bastion side is face up, you will then flip it over to the Fort side and put it back to the leftmost place. And then if the Fort ever gets to the rightmost place, then you've lost the game. And so it's really neat because you're tracking your health in your hand. And another thing that your hand is tracking is actually your mana generation. Because at the beginning of your turn, you're going to count the number of cards in your hand, and that's how much mana you're going to get that turn. So if you have 6 cards in your hand, you're getting 6 mana. And you do always count your 4 Bastion cards, you're always going to get at least 1 mana. If you have 6 cards in your hand, then you'll generate 6 mana on your turn. If you have 7 cards in your hand, you'll generate 7 mana, which means you can play more cards, which means that you'll then have fewer cards in your hand for the next turn, so then you'll generate less mana. And so that's really neat as well. So I think it's really neat having your hand denote how much health you have. Now, moving into a negative here, it seems like it's fairly difficult to actually catch up after your opponent starts to get ahead. Now maybe this is something that just comes with time as you play the game more and become more skillful, but in my experience, it appears as though it's very difficult for someone to catch up after their opponent gets a little bit of a lead. So for example, if your opponent has 2 creatures in each of the 2 lanes in the game, and so then they attack and wipe out all the creatures on your side of the board. Well then when it comes to your turn, you're going to have all the cards in your hand, so you generate 9 mana, and then you go ahead and play some cards on your opponents to attack your opponent's creatures. But unfortunately, when you play a creature, unless it has a specific ability, the rage ability, it's not going to be able to attack on the turn's played until the next. It's not going to be able to attack until the next turn because it was just played. So what this then means is that your creatures can't attack, they can't damage your opponent's creatures, and then on your opponent's turn, they'll play more creatures into those lanes, and then all the creatures they played on previous turns will then be able to kill your creatures again, return back to your hand, and you'll have to play more creatures, and just it keeps cycling down, and it just seems like it's very difficult to catch up. Now, there are some creatures that can help with this, such as the Troll, who is able to attack on the turn he enters play because he's the rage ability, and then if he ever kills an opponent's creature, he can then attack again because of the Berserk ability, and so then he can attack multiple times, wiping out a large number of creatures, mostly smaller creatures, because his attack's only a value of 3. But still, the Troll can help you catch up, or incantations, because they go off immediately, they can also help you out quite a bit in catching up, because then you're able to take down a couple of creatures and before they actually get you a chance to attack. So there's definitely things you can do, but it does feel very difficult to try to catch up after your opponent's already gotten the lead. Even if he only has a lead in one of the 2 lanes, it can be very difficult to put anything into that lane when it's already swarming with your opponent's creatures, because they're just going to die as soon as you play it. It's not like Magic the Gathering, where you can have a creature attack you. You can choose to have a creature damage you instead of damaging your creature to protect it so it's able to attack on its next turn. That sort of thing can't happen in this game because the attacking is all automated, because the combat's all automated, so your creatures are going to have to get hit by your opponent's creatures and they're going to die, and then it just seems very difficult to catch up. Another negative I have with the game is that the AI opponent you fight against in the solo game feels a little bit swingy with how it generates its mana, because the AI in the solo game does not actually play with a hand of cards. instead of counting the number of cards it has in its hand to generate its mana, you're instead going to count the number of player creatures there are. So if I have 3 creatures on the table, you're going to count those 3 creatures, and you're going to add 6 to that number, and that's how much mana the enemy is going to get. So if I have 3 creatures on my side of the board, he's going to get 3 plus 6 mana, so 9 mana. And then he's just going to play cards, and then the AI is just going to play cards randomly from the top of the deck, one at a time, until they've maxed out their mana budget, which I think is a fairly decent system, except the last card that the AI draws can go over the mana limit, can actually go over the amount of mana it has. So for example, suppose the AI has 9 mana. It draws a card that costs 3. Okay, now he has 6 mana. Okay, now it draws a card that costs 5. Okay, he has 1 mana left. And then he draws the only card in the game that costs 7. And he still gets to play it. So somehow he just got 6 extra mana, which is a very big difference. So he just somehow got 6 extra mana. And so now he's ahead. And other times you can have the AI spending exactly how much mana it has. So if it has 9 mana, it draws a card that costs 6, and then draws a card that costs 3, and he just has 9 mana. So, and then there's of course all sorts of different things in between those two extremes. But there's a very big difference between generating 9 mana and then generating 16 mana. And that's going to greatly affect the game state, whether or not the AI generates just the 9 mana or the 16 mana on any given turn. It feels like you're getting away with something a little bit unfair when the AI generates exactly how much mana it should be generating, based off of your creatures, plus its static mana generation. And at other times it feels unfair when the enemy AI generates 6 extra mana out of nowhere. Either way, it doesn't feel particularly satisfying, and I don't really enjoy that element of the game. Now, of course, because the AI is just drawing cards randomly from the deck to play instead of actually strategically choosing cards to play from his hand, I do think that there should be some mana bonus, that the AI should be getting some sort of mana bonus and should be generating more mana to be able to play more cards than the human player, because the human player actually has some strategy that they're able to implement into the game. Whereas the AI is not able to use any sort of wit or strategy, and they just need to play cards randomly. So it does make sense for them to be generating more mana, but I think that mana should be more consistent, and it shouldn't have all the swinginess that is in the current system. But other than that, I do think that the AI works quite well. I found it's quite difficult, which is just a fun challenge. After I finish a game, after I finish one of the games, which again, they're all very short, I always have the feeling that I want to play just one more game, which is a very good thing to have in a game. It's whether you win or lose, you still want to play just one more game, which is a very good thing to achieve in a game. Just want the feeling of wanting to play one more turn, playing one more game. Very good thing. So overall, I do enjoy Clash of Decks. I think there's some really neat mechanics going on here with how you manage your hand, and how the mana is generated, how you track your health, and then just how you play your creatures, and having them attack each other, and trying to play one card that costs 3 mana to take out a total of, taking out 3 of your opponent's cards. Feels very fun, feels really cool. I would definitely recommend you all check this game out. It is a very interesting business model, and it's very affordable with it just being €2 to purchase the starter deck, and then the other expansions are also very cheap. It's about, I think it's €8 to get one of the other decks, with shipping included. If you want to get all the cards that's come out for this game, I believe it's €35 with no additional shipping costs. So very affordable if you would like to try it out. So I would encourage you all to check out the Kickstarter in the link below, and go ahead and support this game. It's a really interesting concept. Thank you all for watching this video. I hope it was helpful for you. I hope you all will check out the Kickstarter page if this sounds interesting to you, and I hope you are all as excited as I am to see what's in the future for this game. And if you did enjoy this video, please consider liking it and then subscribing to MalStorm Gaming and hitting that bell icon so that you're notified whenever I upload more content just like this. And until next time, happy gaming!